Hello, good evening. Hamas says it accepts U.S. President Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan and is ready to release all Israeli detainees under a negotiated deal. Trump hailed the move as a historic step, while Egypt and Qatar urged swift talks, but Israel dismissed Hamas's response as insufficient. Meanwhile, Egypt condemned Ethiopia's reckless dam actions, warning they caused man-made flooding and renewed risks downstream. Welcome to Qnews special coverage. I'm Mark Summers. Stay with us as we bring you the latest developments on these unfolding situations and their consequences. Welcome to the program. Hamas says it accepts President Trump's proposal to end the Gaza war and release all Israeli detainees under a negotiated exchange deal. The group announced its readiness to enter mediated talks immediately, praising Arab, Islamic, and international efforts, including Trump's initiative. Hamas also said it is prepared to hand Gaza's administration to an independent technocratic authority, while stressing that broader questions, including Gaza's future and Palestinian rights, must be resolved through national consensus. Meanwhile, President Trump has expressed gratitude to nations supporting his Gaza peace initiative, calling it a historic step towards peace in the Middle East. In a recorded message on Truth Social, he thanked Egypt, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and other nations for their cooperation, saying the day marked major progress towards ending the conflict. Trump emphasized the return of detainees as a top priority. His 21-point plan envisions a three-phase Israeli withdrawal and temporary technocratic Palestinian administration to oversee Gaza's transition to peace and stability. An informed Egyptian source has said that preparations are underway to discuss field conditions for implementing a Palestinian-Israeli detainee exchange. The source added that Egypt is also arranging a comprehensive Palestinian dialogue on Gaza's future. Those remarks came after Hamas approved releasing all Israeli detainees, alive and dead, under President Trump's proposal, calling for conditions to ensure a full ceasefire and Israeli withdrawal. Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has said Egypt values Hamas's approval of President Trump's peace plan for Gaza, describing it as a crucial step toward halting the war. Madbouli stressed that Hamas's acceptance opens the way for an immediate and lasting ceasefire in Gaza, ensuring the protection of civilians and preventing any displacement of the population. The Egyptian Prime Minister reaffirmed Egypt's commitment and continued efforts in coordination with partners to consolidate peace and stability in the Palestinian territories. Egypt has welcomed Hamas's response to President Trump's Gaza ceasefire plan, praising the movement and all Palestinian factions for prioritizing civilian lives. In a statement by the Foreign Ministry, Egypt stated that Hamas's stance reflects a firm desire to end a dark era and move towards Palestinian statehood. That comes as Cairo praises Trump's leadership, particularly his rejection of annexation or displacement, and praised his reconstruction plan for Gaza. Egypt urged all parties to honor the U.S. proposal, begin detailed negotiations, and advance a political path towards a two-state solution and a lasting peace. Informed Egyptian sources have told our sister news channel, Al Qahira News, that indirect talks between Israeli and Palestinian delegations will be held in Egypt on Sunday. According to the sources, the discussions will focus on creating the necessary conditions on the ground in Gaza to enable a potential exchange of Palestinian and Israeli detainees. The talks come amid intensified diplomatic efforts to advance ceasefire negotiations and pave the way for a broader agreement. And now we are joined from Cairo by Al Ahram Weekly Managing Editor, Khaled Dawood. Thank you very much for joining us here on Q News. So President Trump's peace plan then, does this mark a real turning point in this war?
I think that's what the entire world hopes will be the case. At the end of the day, you know, what President Trump has announced is not a detailed plan. It's some sort of general principles topped with the exchange of Israeli hostages in return for the hundreds of Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. But many other details are still waiting to be finalized. And that's why it's important, the news that senior delegations from the Israeli side, the Egyptian side, Qatari side, as well as the American side, according to the reports, Mr. Steve Witkoff and Mr. Garrett Kushner, both who played a very important role in the 20-point plan that was announced by President Trump, will be here tomorrow in Cairo, because I'm sure what the Palestinians, not just Hamas and Egypt and all those who support the Palestinian cause, are not only concerned about the first part about the exchange or the release of the Israeli hostages as much as President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but they also want to be sure that this is a permanent end of the war, make sure that the Israeli troops are going to withdraw fully from the Gaza Strip, allowing humanitarian aid without any limitations or restrictions, and of course the other difficult subjects of the reconstruction of Gaza and who is going to rule Gaza. Again, even when President Trump announces that there's going to be a board that will oversee the Gaza Strip, this board has not been finalized. It hasn't held any meetings. This will definitely take time. Also, when the plan by President Trump speaks about an international stabilization force, I mean, from my experience as a reporter, even covering the United Nations, where many missions were being formed, this takes weeks, if not months. I mean, the funding, the composition of these force, which countries, where are they going to be positioned? So, I mean, we still have a long way ahead of us. But at the same time, we also have a very extremist, bloodthirsty cabinet in Israel, led by Mr. Netanyahu, who sees the continuation, or as one said, forever war in the region and in Gaza, one way to assure his survival and to, go beyond, far beyond protecting Israel's security, or even taking revenge for the October 7 attacks, to establish itself as the superpower in the region among all the other countries. So that's why I'm saying it's pretty encouraging, if I have to be cautious, to be honest, Mark, judging by our experiences over the past 2 years. It's very encouraging that Trump has republished yesterday the statement that was issued by Hamas, and also the fact that he asked Israeli Prime Minister to immediately stop the attacks against Gaza City, which is witnessing horrible war crimes over the past 2 weeks, so that there would be an ability by Hamas to bring up the 20 hostages, or the remains of the 28 Israeli people who are held by Hamas. So at least, I'm sure Netanyahu would have loved to make this a negotiating point, that he would not stop the war or the attacks except when the prisoners are released. That's the experience of negotiating with Netanyahu. And that's what also creates the fears that, I mean, he can always find excuses to resume fighting in Gaza. And unfortunately, you know, the only kind of guarantee we have is that the Trump administration will keep its word, and that after the release of the Israeli prisoners, that we will see the same American commitment to the rest of the agreement, at least, you know, in terms of full withdrawal and the establishment of a government, Palestinian-led government. I mean, that's very important to note, which will run Gaza Strip in connection with the West Bank and the Palestinian Authority. That's why, I mean, there's a long way ahead, and Arab countries, Arab mediators, namely Egypt, Qatar, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, of course, they have a big responsibility ahead of them to continue pushing the American administration to make sure that we are starting a process whereby the end result would be the establishment of an independent Palestinian state and not just the release of Israeli hostages. And that's, to be honest, my main fear, Mark. Then, I mean, again, the Trump plan is detailed and pretty long term, but on the short term, we've seen it happening before. As soon as the Israeli prisoners are released, Netanyahu goes back to war again or finds any excuse, especially on the issue of disarmament, which is also disarmament of Hamas, which is also a very difficult topic. I mean,
it is. Well, let's go on to that. Let me just stop you for a second, because you've listed many challenges that will come down the track that could derail this agreement. One of those, of course, is Netanyahu's apparent reluctance to embrace the Hamas response. And also he seemed quite upset that Trump had asked Israel to stop bombing Gaza whilst this deal goes through, and in order to release the detainees. What do you make of all that?
Well, again, you know, that's the new development, we might call it. I mean, the record by President Trump over the past 9 months, I might say, is full backing for Israel in whatever it does. What makes many people suspicious and really worried is the experience of the ceasefire deal, which Mr. Trump or Trump's envoy, Mr. Steve Witkoff, negotiated one day before he took office, and on January 20. And at that time, we also saw the release of a group of hostages, just because Trump, again, Mr. Showman, wanted to say that on my first day of the presidency, I fulfilled one of my promises and I released some hostages. But when Israel broke that ceasefire agreement, Mark, on March 18, and imposed a very strict siege of Gaza, the entire Gaza Strip, and then went further and decided to reoccupy Gaza City, evacuating more than 1 million people, starving the people, killing at least 100 a day. Trump administration was silent, and they actually, it seemed like, you know, they bought in this argument that if Israel keeps on killing Palestinians and destroying the buildings there, this might bring Hamas to compromise. But again, you know, some experts, analysts believe that the Israelis, stupid and kind of calculated attack against Qatar on September 9 might have been a factor for change in the Trump attitude, making him at least listen to the Arab point of view, listen to the Arab leaders who met with him on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly meeting a week ago, and that now he, judging at least, I mean, if the problem, to be honest with you, Mark, I can't take Mr. Trump for his word, because he keeps on changing his words. And he said he's going to be fair to all sides, and he's going to make sure that Palestinians also enjoy a human life, and that they won't be evacuated and all that kind of stuff. But judging by the strong relationship between Israel and the United States in general on the level of the establishment, and particularly within the Republican Party and Mr. Trump, I mean, we always have to be careful about what's going to happen and see the tricks that Netanyahu will come up with, first to maintain security control over Gaza, and also to maintain the right to strike Gaza whenever he wants to.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think you're right. I mean, this could turn out to be a momentous day, but you're definitely right to be, if not cautiously optimistic, cautiously hopeful. Thank you very much. Khaled Dawood joining us from Cairo, Al Ahram Weekly managing editor. Thank you very much indeed. It remains to be seen what will happen, but we'll keep you up to date right here on Q News. Now, moving on to Cairo, where Egypt's Ministry of Water Resources has warned of Ethiopia's reckless, unilateral management of its dam, calling it a violation of international law that endangers millions downstream. The ministry reported that Ethiopia stored and abruptly released vast water volumes around its September 9th inauguration, creating an artificial flood that devastated parts of Sudan, contradicting claims of harmlessness. Cairo stressed that the dam's erratic management poses a constant threat during floods and droughts. Egypt continues dynamic monitoring and anticipatory measures to safeguard its water security, while reminding citizens that recent inundated lands are natural Nile floodplain zones. The ministry assured that the high dam remains the ultimate guarantee of Egypt's protection. Now, for more on this story, we are joined from Cairo by the spokesperson for Egypt's Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, Mohamed Khenem. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program. So, the Egyptian statement highlights that Ethiopia drastically reduced water discharge to around 110 million cubic meters on September the 8th, and then released up to 780 million cubic meters on September the 27th. Described this as an unregulated and irresponsible management of the dam. What are the specific risks and damages that could occur due to this irregular flow pattern?
Of course, this Ethiopian unilateral measures is what Egypt warned against for many years, and how these unilateral measures from Ethiopian side has significant harms on the both downstream countries, Sudan and Egypt, and all witnessed during the last days how significant the harm is in our brotherly country Sudan as a result of this Ethiopian unilateral measures. It was supposed in this natural norms that Ethiopia would fill the dam from July till October. July, October, August, and then September and October, and then after the October they release the water discharge to regenerate power, but now Ethiopia filled quickly the dam before September as a result of aiming to celebrate to fill the lake completely, to release the water from the middle canal for the dam. This is for show and for media footage only, but when the rain started to intensively fall, the lake was already full and the water was released towards Sudanese lands and Ethiopia as well. And Ethiopia as well made an enrichment, released some water without any justification, in addition to the falls that were already, in addition to the rains that were already falling. This significantly harmed Sudan, which Egypt has warned against repeatedly.
So when it comes to Nile riverbank lands and the partial inundation that's caused by rising water levels, how does the ministry strike a balance between protecting citizens and their properties located in these areas and preserving the river's natural course while preventing the further encroachments?
Of course, we confirm that the submerged promises were already um, the Nile riverbank lands only, and naturally they will be submerged. This is a part of managing the water system in Egypt, requiring raising or decreasing the water levels throughout the year. Depends on the needs and the amounts of water coming from the upper river. So the raising the level of river depends on different specifications, but citizens in these areas were informed by the relative governorates after a letter by the administration of the ministry, which was happened, and according to these notification, they avoided these areas and moved their properties from these areas, and this was a part of Egypt's great keenness on the safety of citizens in these areas.
Well, thank you very much, Mohammed Ghanem, who is from Cairo and the spokesperson for Egypt's Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation. Please do come back and keep us up to date on this story. Egypt issues a strongly worded statement condemning Ethiopia's reckless unilateral dam actions, warning of grave regional risks and reaffirming firm water management control. Some of the facts of the situation there for you. Now, Sudan's Prime Minister, Kemal Idris, says his government will conduct detailed reviews of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam in coordination with Egypt and Ethiopia to prevent future flood disasters. Speaking in Port Sudan after attending the UN General Assembly, Idris said the findings of the review would be shared publicly and pursued through direct diplomacy with Ethiopia. He also highlighted talks with the UN on designating the Rapid Support Forces as a terrorist organization and urged action to lift the siege of El Fasher. Idris said dialogue with Washington continues over recent US sanctions, adding that engagement with Congress and President Trump's administration has been positive. Sudan's water ministry has warned of rising Nile water levels between Khartoum and Kashbar, urging residents along the river to take precautions to protect lives and property. The ministry said monitoring stations in Khartoum, Shendi and Jebel Aulia recorded significant flood level increases across several states, driven by surging flows from the White Nile and Blue Nile. The warning comes amid renewed debate over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam's impact on water levels and disputes over a legally binding agreement on the dam's filling and operation. Again, this Saturday, there are demonstrations all over the world and in Europe particularly right now in solidarity with Palestine. Let's go back live now to Rome where demonstrators are participating in a demonstration in support of the Palestinian people. Large crowds once again gathered in central Rome today, marking the fourth consecutive day of demonstrations in Italy. This was following Israel's interception of the international flotilla, which was headed with aid to Gaza. The flotilla, which aimed to deliver humanitarian aid, was stopped by Israeli forces and its activists detained, prompting a wave of protests across several Italian cities. In Rome, demonstrators marched past the Colosseum, waving Palestinian flags and chanting slogans such as Free Palestine. Organisers of the march expressed hopes that the turnout would reach 1 million participants. The ongoing demonstrations have drawn criticism from Italy's right-wing government. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has dismissed the protests, suggesting that some participants may be using the cause as a pretext to extend their weekend breaks. Meloni also condemned vandalism on a statue of Pope John Paul II, located outside Rome's main train station, where pro-Palestinian groups have been staging a protest picket. In a statement, Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister, said, "They say they are taking to the streets for peace, but then they insult the memory of a man who is a true defender and builder of peace. A shameful act committed by people blinded by ideology," she says. So a difficult week for the Italian Prime Minister, pressure being put on by thousands upon thousands of Italians taking to the streets in solidarity and support for the Palestinian people and the Palestinian cause. You can see here many people who have taken to the streets, not just here in Rome, but also in London too, where this afternoon there have been arrests at Palestinian protests in London's Trafalgar Square. People across Europe taking to the streets to support the people of Palestine. And that's our special coverage for now. But don't forget you can follow us 24 hours a day. At Qnews EGY is our handle. Thank you very much for watching our special coverage and stay with Q News for more updates.